A word for our listeners. Achtung Cthulhu is set in the 1930s and 40s. We will be using terms and sayings from those times, including some that could be considered offensive. It is not our intention to offend. We merely wish to offer as accurate a view of the time period as possible. Welcome to Masks of Nyarlathotep, a Nerd's Domain gaming podcast. Join us each week as our investigators uncover the corruption of the mythos in World War II. Starring George Chimples, Phil Durham, Rob Walker, Jestin Kimmet, Shirley Niedzwiecki, and Scott Troiano, with Matt Quiett running the table as the keeper. Eldritch evils and crazed Nazi cultists await you just beyond this music.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Nerds Domain Presents Masks of Nyarlathotep. I'm Matt, and I'm here with Rob.
Having a good time.
And we're going to cover an episode that was lost. So if you guys have been looking at the feed lately, you will have noticed that the Nerds Domain HQ got robbed. We lost a bunch of our equipment. More importantly, we lost a laptop with unreleased episodes, including the one where Rob's character, Dr. William Thomas, screwed the pooch.
So, what did we learn from this experiment?
I don't know. Don't let Rob just have complete control of his character concept?
No. Upload everything to the cloud.
Oh, yeah, no, that you're absolutely 100% right on. I actually have a OneDrive just specifically for unedited recorded episodes now. So, Dr. Thomas started off as the academic in the group.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty fair. Evelyn, I don't know, Shirley's character, whatever her character's name is. She was kind of
every day.
She was kind of a secondary character for the occult and for knowledge, but she still had a lot of other things going on.
Right.
So yours was primarily academic and occult focused.
Yep.
And like all good professors, you turned on the party. Potentially really early, because when the fire happened, like you were thinking about it then.
Well, so the getting into the dreamlands for that character was kind of like an opening to a world that he hadn't really considered. So what was really interesting there was that you have somebody presenting basically a knowledge addict with knowledge that is well beyond anything we can comprehend.
Yeah.
And so like it stirred a lot in the character. He was back and forth. I mean, and you can listen to the different episodes and hear where he's still supporting the team. There's no like, I'm not going to throw the team under the bus, but when affronted the opportunity, he's going to pursue his own objectives.
Right. And I think the moment that really turned was you had gotten shot.
Yes.
And nearly died.
Yeah.
Which that can be, especially you're purely academic.
Well,
so
what turned it for him in that moment wasn't that I just got shot. It was that I got shot, and my impression from a lot of what the conversation was, we're going to leave him because we left somebody else.
Okay.
Right. And so the character kept thinking, well, if they leave me, or they left me with a couple people that seemed like, I mean, Carlos is not a nice guy, right?
Right.
And then they left me with the priest, who's already, or not the priest, but the
Brian,
who's already like questioning me and wondering about that. My impression is they're setting me up to be led to the slaughter so they can make the escape fast.
Right. Which, by the way, was not the case, but the character had good reason to be paranoid.
Right, but at that point, I'm starting to go into fever dreams, and I'm starting to lose it, and I don't know where I'm at anymore.
Yeah,
so for the character, I mean, this whole thing is happening exceptionally fast, and he's about to die. And I need to, like, I kind of lose my cohesion with the team at that point.
So if I had not dangled this dream stuff in front of you, would you have not turned?
Oh, no, I was going to either way.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
so,
I mean, the betrayal was already set because I didn't trust the people I was with.
Okay. So, and that progressed as you went on. I think the big kind of turning point is as we went into the next to last episode, the one prior to the one we're missing.
Right.
Where you started dreaming yourself, which was very difficult for your character. I mean, I think I tried to make that very clear that you had very little control.
Right.
You're essentially an infant trying to run around, and it wasn't working very well.
Right.
But still enough to get you intrigued and keep you moving.
Well, and it was not only that, but it's like, I mean, I look at the character. He's kind of arrogant.
Yeah.
Right. A little full of himself. Kind of. I know a lot. I know a boatload. I know more than the normal person.
Yeah.
This is something I have no clue about, and I cannot reconcile that. And how he's reconciling it as he continues to experiment and explore.
Okay. So we hit the castle.
Mm-hmm.
The next to last episode, they had decided to go in the castle.
Right.
So here's how that essentially played out. They went in through the basement.
Yes.
Ended up in a storage room.
Right.
Circled and found a locked door, a very heavily locked door, one
Right.
that they didn't feel comfortable that they could get through. They went around, ended up in a guard area, and just beyond that were cells. And this is literally, they found another room with papers again.
Right.
But that's literally the entirety of the castle that they explored. There's now a theme of, it's a castle, we're only going to look at part of it.
Right.
Which, for good reason. I mean, there were Germans in the building.
Well, and the first castle that we had explored.
Yeah, you guys took a wrong turn and...
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but not only that, but like, we kind of have an idea like, okay, well, if we're coming across this same cult and they're doing the similar kind of action, then what we need to be doing is figuring out, is this the same setup?
Right.
Are we dealing with multiple of the same threats? Can we recover more of this technology kind of mentality, right?
Yeah.
And so it really directs that group to do very similar things because the past experience, we're comfortable with this. We know what we're going to get into if we find this thing.
Yeah.
And how to kind of better handle it because we've experienced it before.
Yeah. So you guys, the party, because at some point you just stopped talking while they were exploring the castle, which I took to mean you left the party and just didn't say anything.
Right.
And nobody was talking to you.
Well, you and I were communicating.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes.
But it wasn't, none of the communications you directly sent me were like, I walk away from the party until it was almost at that point where you were like, I walk away from, you did eventually send that when like, I think they were getting ready to attack the guards.
Right. It's when I move away.
But by that point, I had already decided that you had already moved away. You'd probably been finger crooked over by someone else. So you met, while you were in the woods, backing up a little bit, you met a woman in the Dreamlands.
Yes.
Who essentially dangled a giant hook in front of you.
Right.
Which you tried to take and mostly took.
Right.
You tried really hard to get them to go along.
Right.
So essentially you met that woman again.
Yes.
She was at the castle.
In flesh this time.
Yes, in flesh.
Right.
And essentially she pulled you over to her side with whatever. Hey, come with me.
Right.
Probably as much as it took. So you betray the group.
Yep.
But they don't realize that until they get into the essentially the dungeon,
right,
where there are prisoners,
right,
and they find Augustus,
right,
or August, just one, and August is a previous player character played by Jesse,
right,
prior to von Trotha, Albrecht von Trotha. That's his current character. That was the other character he played.
Yeah.
So August was his originally character for the Octung storyline. Jesse and I are going to reveal slowly over time how he ended up in that cell, because that's, there's some story there, obviously.
Right.
But they decided to grab him, and as they grabbed him, they turned around to find you and her kind of standing there waiting for them, and they fled.
Right.
And I mean, there was a lot more. It was a little more intense than this, I would like to think. Right. I like to think that I led them on a very deep, mysterious journey through the castle dungeons, but realistically, it boils down to they found August. I keep wanting to call him Augustus. He's not Roman.
Blanca.
You're right. But they found August and decided, you know what, this is the time we need to get out of here. We have some more information on what they're studying, which was different. We have one of Shirley's character's uncle, which, there's some familial ties there.
Right.
So those are important as well. And they're like, all right, we bolt. where's Dr. Thomas? And that's when they realized that you had turned.
Right.
And they fled. And, at that point, I'm just going to let them get out of the country because there's no reason not to, because that's not the point of the storytelling that we're doing. The storytelling for that particular 4 episodes was, why does William Thomas turn on the party? That's what I was taking it as.
Right.
And not trying to necessarily line it up so that you had to, but I was pretty sure you were already on board with.
Oh, buddy.
Yeah.
So I don't like conventional character anyways, right?
Right.
I mean, the goody two-shoe stuff, if I want to do that, I'm going to go play Zelda.
Right.
If I'm looking to explore the depth of a character, your normal run-of-the-mill characters are not, to me, very appealing. I think, I like the idea of Phil's character. I like what he's doing with it. He's got that. It's so over-the-top zealot.
Yeah.
That it creates new kind of problems and mischief. Carlos is just a bundle of broken.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we got some really, all the characters really have really good quirks and quality traits. And that's what I've been trying to find is which one matches me the most. And besides, I mean, the Betrayer was a lot of fun. I like that.
Yeah.
But it was the ability to explore an avenue of the game that I don't get to explore often.
Right. And Cthulhu allows for, I'm a terrible person, but still a good guy.
Right.
Which is what Carlos is. Carlos has murdered people and feels no remorse, 0 remorse whatsoever.
Right.
But he's still a good guy.
Right.
Like he did it for the right reasons. And War does that.
Right.
War only amps that up. So while we're looking at, I know you weren't around for season 1, but when we look at some of the things they did, they straight murdered a little girl that happened to be a werewolf at the time that they might have been able to save with a counter ritual. But one of the players is like, no, I can't do this. I'm just going to magic her to death. Just blam, dead. I sacrifice. She 20 damage. And I was like, well, that werewolf is dead. So, I mean, and that character took a whole lot of guff, a ton of guff, 7 or 8 episodes of guff for that one decision.
But that's good.
Right.
Because, I mean, if everyone gets along in the party, you can progress the story, but you have very little role play that takes place then. It's a lot of, well, then we went left, and then we went right, and then we got up, and then we got down. If you don't have a conflict in the party, if there's got to be some kind of building the team dynamic to be that team that ends the arc or ends the line or ends the story. And
while there doesn't always, I don't know, there always has to be a team, a full-on conflict. There can be a conflict of ideology.
Conflict of interest, a conflict of ideology, a
yeah.
conflict of some that needs to be resolved, needs to be worked through, or needs to be accounted for. That always has kind of a lingering play in the series.
And I think season 1 was really dealing with the different personalities because there were literally we had a cowgirl and a dude that had decided that he was an Eastern mystic, which he wasn't, and a big game hunter, and a hard-nosed detective, and a hard-nosed detective that also might have been a heretic killer, and a professor. I mean, those we had a wide array, which I felt most of them were very Lovecraftian for what they were doing. This one was the second season was a little less full range, but it's also military and war-minded, so that it's a little tighter on that, which is fine, because now the next episode that we're going to record, you're going to be making your character.
Yep.
Your character has very different, just nationality-wise.
Right.
We have a bunch of Americans working for the British. You're going to be playing a Frenchman.
Yes.
Which the French and the British and the Americans are all allies, but they're totally different.
Right.
Britain was never invaded in World War I. The Americans are the great saviors of World War I, in their minds at least.
Right.
Whether the British or the French agree, or even just are begrudgingly agreeing,
right?
They have a different view completely on how World War I ended,
right?
And you're going to come in with even more conflict, which we'll get into,
right?
But those things inserting you, and that's why I think Brian's a good character. Brian Blake, the Phil plays, because he obviously has ulterior motives, which you guys aren't fully aware of all of what that is.
No, but we're catching a bit of it as we go.
Yeah, and he's been like, I don't really want to say anything, but I'm going to go ahead and just let this little snippet sneak out. And so we keep seeing these little bits of Brian coming out. Carlos is a very broken character.
Right.
And then Evelyn is this naive kind of idiot child at times. She's very intelligent, but has no idea how the world actually works. Right. So it's interesting watching those things kind of change and mold together while still in this setting. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that going into this next arc. The next arc is a written module called Shadows of Atlantis.
Okay.
So this one was one of the 2 written arcs that they put out for the Octung Cthulhu storyline. It's big. I mean, it's like big. There's a chapter per location. There are 9 chapters, so we've got some room to move around. But there's a lot going on there. So I think we're going to see in the progress of that, because there are going to be times when you guys have to do something that is questionable to get to the next step, and the next step has to be gotten to. There is no question of whether or not you have to be there. It's just, is this really what we have to do?
Right.
And now you have to deal with that. And at least one of the characters is going to have a terrible time dealing with that. Because he might also be a heretic killer, but we're not going to say any names.
Gee, really?
Right, yeah.
What? No.
So, this one should allow for character growth and character conflict without turning into the last 2 professor issues, which you were one of, which was straight on betrayal and leaving the party. And the other one was, might as well have been betrayal, because he watched someone who he could have saved and went, meh, and watched him get gunned down twice. Twice.
It hero.
And I think our listeners at home are aware of this, but it was, so Jason was playing the professor. He murdered the werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesse, playing the heretic killer, went, that was a terrible thing. You should never have done that. And hit him. Like, not just like punched him, but had a 2-handed club, cracked him in the head with it, and dealt a significant amount of damage.
Oh, nice.
And Jason was like, well, I'm just going to let it happen. Hopefully somebody else will pull him off of me. And so they get on a boat to go to their next location. Deep ones get on the boat. Jesse's character gets cut down, and Jason, the one who can do medicine, goes, I'm going to go ahead and kill that deep one. I don't need to worry about saving him. And then later they're like, they're assaulting a mountain where there's the cult, and Scott's character's like, hey, guys, that's Jason's character's parents. They're leading the cult. That's his parents. And Jason went, I'm going to back out of the room and back everybody else out. Was essentially what happened. And I'm like, but okay, well, he just got murdered. Okay, that's twice. And no one's really stopping him at this point. This is awkward and weird. I don't know what to do here. So he was a little more controversial of a character than the one you've got the one you just ended.
I was hoping to get to that point with it, but we have a very observant group,
right,
and that
because they've been betrayed before,
right. So that adds insult to injury, and then I had some good rolls, so I was able to keep up my pretense,
right.
But my group meta knows what's going on, and it's a very challenging thing to work through when you know meta that someone is trying to betray you and someone's trying to ruin your day.
Yeah. And I think they handled it pretty well.
Yeah,
but still, in the end, like everything you did was like, okay, why is he doing that? I don't know. We need to get into this. Like,
but it was like, I'm gonna go have a drink of water. Why is he taking that drink of water? What is he doing?
And it didn't help that you were like, I'm in the hospital again because a dog bit me. It was totally a dog, guys. There was a guy here. No, there really was. And they're like, okay, well, we're gonna look into this. There was no guy. There was no dog.
Well, they went suspicious out the gate.
Which,
but
your story didn't exactly line up well.
Well, my persuasion was high enough that it did.
Yeah, it still smelled a little fishy. When they were in Switzerland, there's not a lot of fish there.
Right. Well, I had good persuasion rolls.
Yeah.
They bought into the scar, they bought into the tear.
Yeah.
And
it was more like, okay, well, we need to find this guy and find out what the hell's going on.
Right.
And then they were like, what do you mean there was no guy? What do you mean the only guy with a name anything like that wasn't even here while he was here and was never in his room? There was nobody ever in his room. Like, this all seems weird. And I did kind of hand them the reason to go that was separate from yours, but at the same time, like, they were going to probably end up going. They were going to go and like keep an eye on you, which they did.
Right.
But at the same time, like, they were like, this seems off and weird, and it was for good reason. I'm going to make up a werewolf. It's totally okay.
He bought it.
I'm going to let you in on a secret that and our listeners at home that nobody else knows. There was only ever one werewolf. That the one they fought the one time. You guys fought one werewolf. That is the only guy that was a werewolf. There has never been another.
That was a different storyline that didn't make it.
Yeah.
Because I remember that one.
Yeah, that one was that was a dream sequence or something. I don't know. No, but like after we had to redo that particular another storyline to replace that, I was like, you know what, I misread the entry the first time because I assumed anything called Nachtwolf would have more to do with wolves, but it's more a stylization and the fact that Hitler styles himself after a wolf in a lot of ways. He's got the wolf's lair. That's his deep bunker safety zone, and so he has a lot of wolf themes across his military stuff. So they branded themselves kind of off that instead of what I read when I first read it was that they were werewolves, or they used werewolves, and that's not the case.
Right.
So there was just the one werewolf, which I'm perfectly fine with because werewolf makes it even more terrifying.
Well, but if there's one, then people are their automatic assumption is now this is a thing that is taking place here, and I think it worked well. And there's
a lot more to be terrified from the Nachtwolf than just werewolves. Like those guns, I'm telling you, I have yet to shoot you guys with one because literally it will be, okay, Rob, your character's dead. That's 46, and I can shoot you from like 120 yards. Oh, also, if you pick up the gun and try and shoot it, you take damage because it has so much recoil. You take like a D6 of recoil damage. It's ridiculous.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like it.
So those guns are terrifying. Like you might as well have tank guns being carried around by these huge guys. But yeah. So you betrayed the group.
Yep.
For good in-character reasons.
Right.
So this is the second character you played. Mel Gorp was kind of a role we threw you into when we realized that Johnny wasn't going to be able to make it for other reasons. So we needed that particular role because I built the entirety of our start off of his character being the central point.
Right.
Which, it happens. So I kind of threw you into that. The professor was very different. I think you're going a little bit back towards the Mel Gorp side of things with this next character.
I think I'm going a lot, but the next character will be a lot less wholesome.
Right.
Kind of, my goal and my objective is to have a good reason to be involved in the conflict. Right. Because, with Mel Gorp, it didn't, he was ordered to and they were bringing him in, but it didn't feel like a great reason to be involved in the conflict.
Right.
And it felt out of place.
Right.
And here, this character, it's not just involved in the conflict. I'm supporting a team because I back them.
Right.
I want this character to be involved in this conflict for very personal, deep reasons.
Which I think we've worked in pretty well.
Right.
And we'll get into that a little bit more. So we went through 15 episodes, I think, with the professor. That sounds ish.
Yeah, ish.
Were there any parts of that arc that you wish you would have done a little different?
I do wish I could have. I wanted to bring Brian with me when I died. So, the professor wanted Brian to die. Like, he just, it stood against everything fundamentally inside of him.
Yeah.
Because it's ultra dogmatic.
Yeah.
Ultra pragmatic. And that's not the way the professor wanted to run. The professor is like, no, there's more to this world than just cut black and white. And
right.
Brian is a lot of very black and white. He doesn't like the gray as much.
Yeah, yeah, and we've corrupted him along the way a little bit, but not a lot.
Not a lot, but you can see our influence. But and he's letting a little more of the gray slip. But it's very black and white with that character.
Yeah,
and for the professor, he wanted to bring him with him. When we got into Innsbruck, the professor's whole goal was to find a place to trap that party and get Brian down and bring Brian down.
Well,
and then I think it was Nidicris that was like, yeah, we can bring, I want you to get these two here. I don't care about the other ones. You can kill them.
Yeah.
Get these other two here. And in front of the opportunity, I would have probably acted on that.
Yeah.
But Brian and Carlos were very suspicious player characters.
Yeah.
They tend to, anything and everything that looks wonky is now apparently wonky. So
Brian at least had in-game reasons. Carlos had dealt with Nachtwolf before, so he had some questionable, he had reasons to question everything, but Brian was supposed to be suspicious of everything.
Right.
He knew you were all a bunch of terrible people. He just had to prove it before he killed you.
So I think the next character will kind of prove he's a terrible person.
Yeah.
Really easy. That's not going to be a question.
Well, and I think there's a difference between a terrible character that is also terrible, like Nidicris.
Right.
and a terrible character that is ultimately good, but has no longer any care for morality.
Right, and that's really what it. There is a morality there. There's going to be morality at least a very base level.
German's bad.
Yeah, but beyond that, there's going to be certain practices and things that he won't engage in or he won't do because of the character. But at the same time, there are going to be aspects of this character that are just wonky, just off the charts.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to wrap this episode up. I think we touched on most everything. So William Thomas, now officially an NPC that I get to use. I'm excited about that. We'll see kind of where he goes.
Hopefully I gave you a good one.
Yeah. Well, it just happens to be that the Nazi ranks keep widening and widening with NPCs that were previously PCs. So we'll see how badly that goes for you guys.
Keep in mind, he's got a nice archaeology stat.
You're not the only one. All right, so that'll do us tonight for the Nerds Domain Presents Masks of Nyarlathotep, and we will talk to you guys real soon.
And that will do it for us tonight on the Nerds Domain Presents Masks of Nyarlathotep. Remember, you can email us at nerdsdomain@gmail.com or find us on facebook.com/nerdsdomain, on Twitter @nerdsdomain, or over at our site, nerdsdom.com. Be sure to sign up for the newsletter while you're there. You can head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. We want to thank Josh Schopp for our music. Don't forget, you can support us at patreon.com/nerdsdomain. And check out our shirts at slashloot.com.